What's up, guys? Welcome back to the I'm Not Lying podcast. It's your favorite host, Michael, and let's get into today's recording. So, I'm going to start a little new series. I don't know how long it's going to be, don't know how many installments, don't know how many episodes it will be on, but I'm going to do a segment called Things Sports Fans Have Been Robbed of. And essentially, it's just going to be me talking about things that sports fans either have been robbed of or they think they were robbed of, but they actually weren't. So, with that being said, let's get into it. So, the first topic is a Kobe and MJ finals. Kobe's first two rings that he won were in MJ's second and third year of his second retirement. Who knows if Jerry Krause decides to keep that Bulls team from the second three-peat together, who knows what could happen. We all saw that he was the reason that it blew up in the first place from the documentary. So if he decides, let's try to tap in and win this, another 2, 3, heck, who knows how long it could have gone for. And they could have coincided the existence of that dominant core with Kobe and Shaq's resurgence. Man, that could have been magical. Kobe and MJ have only played 8 games against each other, and both of them only started in only 2 of those games. I mean, they still did have some memorable moments. In 1997, MJ scored 36 in a win against the Lakers, while Kobe came off the bench and scored 33. And in 2003, Kobe himself made his own double nickel in a win at home against MJ, who scored 23, shooting 10 for 20 from the field at age 40. Who could have imagined something more poetic than 2 top 5 players battling out in the finals? And that segues perfectly into my second thing sports fans have been robbed of: a Kobe and LeBron finals. Look, no matter how you want to rank them, Kobe and LeBron are number 1 and number 2 in either order of players since the year 2000. And it's not even close. It's not Steph Curry, not Kevin Durant, not Kawhi. No. If you want to talk about the greatest players in this century, it's Kobe and LeBron. Now, we had a solid 7-season window in which we could have potentially see Kobe and LeBron play each other in the finals. And it all starts in 2007. 2007, Kobe loses 4 games to 1 to the Phoenix Suns in the first round. LeBron goes all the way to the finals and gets swept by Spurs. In 2008, Kobe loses 4-2 to Boston in the finals. LeBron that year lost 4-3 in the second round to that same Boston team. In 2009, Kobe wins 4-2 over the Magic in the finals. LeBron lost to that same Magic team 4-2 in the conference finals. 2010, Kobe wins his second straight championship 4-3 over Boston. LeBron lost in the conference finals 4-2 to Boston. 2011, Kobe got swept by Dallas in the second round. LeBron lost 4-2 to that Dallas team in the finals in one of the hugest superstar meltdowns of modern sports history. 2012, Kobe lost 4-1 to OKC in the second round. LeBron wins 4-1 over OKC in the finals. 2013, if you don't remember, that was the year that Kobe got hurt in like the third to last game of the season, which ended up with the Lakers getting swept by the Spurs in the first round, and LeBron beat the Spurs that year 4-3 in the NBA Finals. Going over that list, it kind of made me realize something. Not only did LeBron have that 8-year stretch where he made it to the finals every single year, but let's take it back a notch. From 2007 to 2018, LeBron either made it to the finals or lost to the team that went to the finals. I think that's pretty noteworthy. It's it's a pretty impressive feat knowing that, all right, I'm not the best, but I'm probably am second best. And with those Cleveland teams that he was forced to be on, it's pretty insane that that's the feat that LeBron himself accomplished. So I'm not saying that adds anything more or takes away anything from his legacy, but it was just something interesting that I noticed. Here's the third thing, and this is probably the most interesting one. The possibility of a Detroit Pistons dynasty. Do we remember that 2003 draft? Some label it the best draft in modern sports history out of any sport. You had Carmelo, Chris Bosh, Kyle Korver, Dwayne Wade, LeBron, everybody in that draft. Who was the second overall pick? Darko Milicic. Where did he go? The Detroit Pistons. This was a huge head scratcher then, and it's even more of a head scratcher now. Not just because NCAA champion and second team All-American Carmelo Anthony, first team All-American Dwayne Wade, and Georgia Tech standout Chris Bosh went 3, 4, and 5 to follow up Milicic, nor was it because that despite going 15-32 the year prior, the Detroit Pistons got the second overall pick from a trade with the Vancouver Grizzlies 6 years before that draft. It was because despite minimal contributions from the number 2 overall pick, Detroit still won the title. And when I say minimal contributions, I mean Darko Milicic played less than 0.25% of the Detroit Pistons playoff minutes. He only played 14 of Detroit's 5,620 playoff minutes. If you want to get an understanding of how unfulfilling Milicic's career was, since the lottery era started in 1985, Milicic ranks 319th out of 324 top 14 picks with 8,000 or more minutes played in win shares. For reference, Kwame Brown, one of the biggest busts in NBA history, he ranks 262nd. And Brandon Roy, a terrific player who had his career derailed by injuries, ranks 180th. Darko Milicic ranks 319th. Imagine if the Pistons would have drafted Melo or Wade or even a Chris Bosh or someone else in that draft. They could have had something where it could have not just been that one title. They could have won 2 or 3 or maybe pull off a 3 and 4 like the Golden State Warriors did. Because the biggest problem with the Pistons in that era, wasn't their defense, it was their offense. From the 2000-2001 season, they didn't have a top half offense in the NBA until the 2013-2014 season. That's long after that dynasty ended. Imagine if they could have paired that great team defense with a great scorer like Carmelo Anthony or Dwayne Wade. That could have been something special and something amazing for that city to gravitate behind. Here's the fourth thing. The return of 2 big men dominance. Now, who was the last team to use 2 prominent big men at a time? The Spurs, the Memphis Grizzlies. Well, the New Orleans Pelicans probably did it last and to the most successful extent, and it really left a lot of questions about what could have happened. We all remember, at a 2017 All-Star break, Boogie Cousins and Omri Caspi was traded to New Orleans for Tyreek Evans, Langston Galloway, Buddy Hield, and a 2017 first-round pick that became Zach Collins, who doesn't even play for Sacramento, and also a second-round pick. Boogie doesn't even play for New Orleans anymore, and the Pelicans are still in a better place currently than the Sacramento Kings. That's how bad of a trade it was. AD and Boogie had a special connection. In 2017 and 2018, they became the first teammates ever to average 25 points and 10 rebounds in the same season. And before you tell me, oh, Boogie went out, so AD's production obviously went up. Before Boogie left, AD averaged 26 and 10, so that record still would have stood. With AD and Boogie on the floor, the Pelicans outscored opponents by 4.4 points per 100 possessions. They were a more efficient shooting team, a better rebounding team, and they averaged more assists and committed less fouls. So what does that mean? They were a more efficient team. And what happened in that year for the New Orleans Pelicans? Oh, yeah, they swept the Trailblazers in the first round and ran into the Golden State Warriors. What's the one thing that people always knock the Golden State Warriors for during their run? Oh, yeah, they didn't really have a true dominant big man presence. David West, JaVale McGee, Zaza Pachulia, all three of them combined to average 67 minutes in that entire 5-game series with New Orleans. Can you imagine if New Orleans were able to put AD and DeMarcus Cousins on the floor together? I'm not saying they beat Golden State, but they definitely have their weakness called out. And with potentially two of the greatest players at that time, who knows what could happen? Maybe they pull off the upset solely because they have two dominant players where Golden State has many, let's be honest, replacement level players. So what AD and Boogie could have become is easily one of the greatest what ifs of this modern era. Now, here's something that a lot of NBA fans think they missed out on, but honestly, the league was right to not let it happen. And that was Kobe Bryant's banana boat induction. Do we remember the 2011-2012 NBA season? Yeah, the lockout season. And the day before the season started, David Stern said, no, I will not allow Chris Paul to be traded to the Los Angeles Lakers. Everyone, including the players, was caught off guard and shocked. Chris Paul sought out his legal options against the league, and the Houston Rockets were upset because they were slated to get Pau Gasol, who could have potentially been the next Yao Ming as far as production from the big man position for them. But there's many, many reasons that a lot of people don't point out as to why this trade didn't happen. One, New Orleans didn't have an owner at the time, so they were at the mercy of the league. They were owned by the league. So that means the league not necessarily calls the shots, but they make all the executives' decisions. Two, the banana boat was terrifying the league at that point. LeBron had just joined forces with Dwayne Wade that summer. Carmelo Anthony was just traded to the Knicks in February. The group, those three, along with Chris Paul, had often discussed playing together. And Chris Paul was a free agent in 2013, and the other three were free agents in 2014. Kobe had just won 2 straight titles, and if Chris Paul could have either continued that run or found some level of success in LA, you want to tell me that the other 3 Banana Boat members wouldn't take pay cuts just to play together along with Kobe Bryant? It was never about the money for those guys. Yeah, they may be max players, but they earned that max money. It was always about the basketball. They always have wanted to play together. That's why Dwayne Wade went to Chicago and then to Cleveland. It wasn't about the money. Dwayne Wade could have made a lot of money if he had never left Miami. But he wanted to play the basketball. He wanted to play for his hometown, Chicago. That's what it was about. And 3, finally, the ends ended up justifying the means. Kobe Bryant God rest his soul, had probably the greatest career-ending game anyone in the history of any sport will ever have. A 60-point game. Don't come to me with Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning looked terrible in that Super Bowl. CP3, he became an all-time player for 2 franchises and nearly made it 3 when he had the Rockets 1 game away from the finals before he got injured. And he's now turned into a great veteran leader for this upstart OKC team who people had dead to rights. Dwayne Wade, he won 2 titles with LeBron in Miami, and he managed to play for his hometown Chicago team and take them to the playoffs, and also he retired with Miami. What about LeBron? LeBron won 3 titles, including 1 for his hometown Cleveland team. Melo is doing his favorite thing in the league, making money and making shots. And as far as the New Orleans Hornets are concerned, they got all the pieces they needed from trading Chris Paul to the Clippers. That they got all the pieces that they needed for a nice and solid rebuild that started with Anthony Davis. And honestly, the way that they look right now, I think they're a pretty formidable team for years to come. Also, I've heard a lot of people say, how did the league allow that to happen? But they didn't stop KD going to the Warriors, or a better timely topic, LeBron going to the Heat. Well, it's kind of with what I said before. The Hornets were trying to execute a trade. And yes, what LeBron did affected the imbalance of the league, he put in air quotes, but he was a free agent. So was Chris Bosh. They really could have did whatever they wanted. Hence the term free agency. You're free to do whatever you want. The Chris Paul situation was a trade by a team who was owned by the league. So the league called the final shots. All right. Here's another new thing I'm going to try out for this podcast. Will I continue it? Probably, because it's kind of fun. I'm not going to lie. But it's called My Take on Your Take. Me being a promising and budding sports journalist and sports analyst, I watch a lot of television about sports analysis and sports journalism. So therefore, I hear a lot of takes about a lot of different things and about a lot of different topics. So with that being said, I gathered a few that I've heard or that I just heard about, and I decided to do my own take on them, do my own spin on not just the topic, on what the person said, and here we go. So I remember when I was researching for the stuff that NBA fans missed out on, I remember looking up Kobe's 60-point game, and I came across this clip of Jason Whitlock on the Herd with Colin Cowherd when he took over. Jason Whitlock said that Kobe's 60-point game was an ode to his narcissism and selfishness. And he's right. He's 100% right on that. But that's what made Kobe's 60-point game so great. See, Whitlock said it from the notion of, well, he ran Shaq out of town and he killed the Lakers franchise and stopped them from becoming whatever they wanted to be. Kobe didn't do any of that. All Kobe did was make the money that he deserved to make, while also making us just believe in the ability for him to do something magical again. Since the year 2000, there have been 23 games in which a player has scored 50 or more points, taken 35 or more shots, and made at the most half of those shots. Kobe has the most of such games with 8. That's over a third of the 23. No other player has more than 4, and that 4 would be Allen Iverson. 7 of Kobe's 8 games of that nature came within 2003 and 2007. What happened from 2003 to 2007? Kobe didn't win any titles. Yeah, Whitlock was right on that. Kobe's 60-point game which was the last game under those parameters, was an ode to his narcissism and selfishness. But that's a part of his legacy. That's why we loved Kobe so much. We didn't hate Kobe because he hogged the ball. We loved him for it because we know who else are we going to trust to take the shots. We enjoyed that. One of the running jokes of the Boston Celtics finals win for the Lakers was Ron Artest saying, "Oh my God, Kobe passed me the ball." It was funny. It was fun. It was part of the enjoyment of that time. That 60-point game perfectly encompassed what made Kobe so special. And it's a combination of methodology and of ideals that we see in players currently in the NBA. It was a combination of Russ's never give up mentality combined with Harden's never stop shooting mentality. We all see the memes on social media of if you see a PS4 controller that's controlling Kobe, it's nothing but square buttons because all he's going to do is shoot. It's funny. It's not a diss to him at all. It's something that we enjoy. Yes, Kobe shot 50 shots and scored 60 points. Yes, it was selfish, it looked narcissistic, but we don't care because the moment was magical. From the first bucket that he made all the way to the last bucket that he made. Oh, and by the way, despite all his narcissism and selfishness, Kobe still won 5 titles, and he did win that final game where he dropped 60 points. You can say, oh, the refs, they wanted him to win, or the other team wanted him to win. That even adds to the greatness of the game because it felt like it was manipulated. Kobe was so great that it just felt like there were other forces at hand to explain what we were witnessing with our own eyes. Kobe was giving us one last stand, and people came up with every reason in the book to not give him the respect that he deserved for that night. Kobe's 60-point game was an ode to his narcissism and selfishness. Whitlock is right on that. But where he's wrong is, it's not a bad thing. It's a good thing, and that is what made Kobe so great. His narcissism and his selfishness. Now, here's another thing. This one a lot more timely and a lot more recent. The Carolina Panthers. They posted a Twitter poll yesterday, I believe, with allowing the fans to vote for who was the GOAT of the team between Steve Smith, Julius Peppers, and Luke Kuechly. And everyone, myself included, thought, where's Cam? Why isn't Cam involved in this? I mean, yes, I understand. Steve Smith, leading receiver of the franchise, but before Cam got there, your record with Steve Smith was 74-86. I understand, it's up to the quarterback, and, they had Jamie Clausen for a year, but that doesn't excuse the fact that you had a losing record with Steve Smith, and with Cam, you went 68-55 and 1. And also another thing to mention, you traded Steve Smith away, and he became a very good and very serviceable wide receiver for the Baltimore Ravens. So if you loved him for so much, if you felt that he was the GOAT of your team, why did you give him away? Next was Julius Peppers. Julius Peppers was a dominant defensive end for the Carolina Panthers. He was a 9-time Pro Bowler, 3-time All-Pro, but he spent 7 years in Green Bay and Chicago, and in the 9 playoff games he played with the Panthers, he only gave y'all 2 sacks. I'm not saying that it's easy to play the position at all. That's not what I'm saying, but for him to be considered in the GOAT conversation of your franchise, and he only gives you 2 sacks in 9 playoff games, he was great. Don't get me wrong. He was great, but to put him on instead of Cam doesn't sit right with me. And also, the next and final pick was Luke Kuechly. Luke Kuechly was a 7-time Pro Bowler, a 5-time All-Pro, and he was easily the most dominant player in Carolina Panthers history. But he didn't win an MVP. He didn't win an MVP. He was the anchor of that defense, yeah. But who won the MVP? Cam. Because Luke Kuechly was the anchor for that defense, but very much so likewise, Cam Newton was the anchor of that offense. And look, people's frustration and confusion doesn't come from the fact that they omitted Cam. It comes from the fact that they omitted Cam when they didn't have to omit Cam. I understand the pick 3 pictures were trendy, but you could have easily done 4 with a Twitter poll. I've done my own Twitter poll where I've had 4 options available. The Carolina Panthers could have easily created a graphic with Cam, Steve Smith, Julius Peppers, and Luke Kuechly and said, pick these 4, and then have the fans vote. Because see, basing something off with these pick 3 things, with your comments and your retweets and your likes, the numbers can easily get misconstrued. Someone can just simply like the picture because they like the Carolina Panthers. That doesn't mean they think the person who was positioned in the like, who I think was Steve Smith, it doesn't mean that they think that person's the greatest Panther of all time. They just like the picture. People can comment, who I believe the comment was Julius Peppers. People can comment and say, oh, I believe one of the other 2 was the best. But that comment technically goes for Julius Peppers, but they don't believe it. And also the retweet. You can retweet it and share it to other people, or you can retweet it with a comment and not pick the person who goes for the retweet. See, at this point, it starts to seem a little intentional, because the Carolina Panthers have been taking shots at Cam this entire time, ever since he's left. And all Cam has done was just post workout videos of him working out with various athletes and working out with his brother. So when it comes to this Twitter poll, look, like, I get it. You want to do the trendy pick 3. I understand. But for you to omit Cam is just a major red flag, major red card. And the fact that you could have easily done a pick 4, which is more accurate and less easily to get the numbers mixed up and misconstrued. Like, at this point, it just seems like they're intentionally trying to slight Cam. That's all that it seems like right now. Now, here's the third thing from a couple days ago, and it still has to do with Cam Newton. Doug Gottlieb took over for the herd, and he talked about Cam Newton's workout video. He was working out with OBJ, and he says that if Cam wants to show teams that he's ready to go, he should probably work with a specialist to work on his footwork and his release and his throwing motion, yada, yada, yada. And he's right. That's one thing about Doug Gottlieb. We don't like the messenger, but a lot of times he has the right message. But here's the thing with what Doug Gottlieb said. 2 things with what Doug Gottlieb said. One, Cam probably is working with a specialist. That's probably just the stuff he doesn't post on social media. And 2, Cam shouldn't have to prove to teams that he's working with a specialist to work on his throwing motions or his release, because he's Cam Newton. Do we remember the 2018-2019 season? I said that a lot. Do we remember? Well, because it's important that you remember. In his first 8 games, the Panthers went 6-2. Newton completed 67% of his passes, 15 touchdowns to 4 interceptions, and had a 101 passer rating, and was sacked only 12 times. And then we split the season pretty much in half, and we go the last 6, which were all losses, because that's when TJ Watt fired a helmet into Cam Newton's shoulder. It wasn't intentional. It was just in the heat of battle, so nobody really kills TJ Watt for it. But it still happened. It wrecked Cam Newton's shoulder. He threw 9 touchdowns and 9 interceptions, had an 86 passer rating, was sacked 17 times. But Cam Newton completed 69% of his passes then. And all the Cam hate I see on social media is Cam doesn't complete his passes. But in his last completely healthy year, not even completely healthy, when the wheels were falling off the wagon, he still completed an average of 68% of his throws. So I'm not so sure about the Cam needing to work on his release part when that is evidence of what happened in his last full season as a starting quarterback. And Gottlieb also makes the mention of, well, Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane in Buffalo didn't sign him, and Ron Rivera called in Kyle Allen his backup into Washington instead of Cam. Yeah, they did that for pretty good reasons. Not because Cam is bad, but because both of those front offices, Buffalo and Washington, know that a healthy Cam or even a 28T Cam is a better quarterback option for them than the quarterbacks that they currently have on their roster. And they don't want to bring in a Cam Newton whose name value alone would intimidate anybody in any quarterback room, regardless of how many rings you've won or what your stats are. Josh Allen just made a monumental leap from his rookie year to his second year. Do you think he wants to feel the heat of Cam Newton on his neck as he's throwing the ball in the pocket or scrambling out the pocket and he potentially fumbles or takes a bad sack? Nobody wants to deal with that pressure. All Dwayne Haskins had to deal with his rookie year was pressure because his front office and his coaching staff didn't believe in him at all. They didn't. They had no confidence in him, and therefore Dwayne Haskins had no confidence in himself. So for those two teams to bring in Cam Newton would just jeopardize whatever they're trying to build. Ron Rivera is there to rebuild Washington. Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane did a terrific job rebuilding Buffalo. You don't rebuild with Cam Newton. You simply win with Cam Newton. That's the thing. That's why they haven't brought in Cam. It's not because they feel he's not a great option at quarterback. It's because with the quarterbacks they have, they know Cam is better. And the quarterbacks that they have on their roster probably know themselves that Cam is better. But why add that extra pressure on a young quarterback who needs the confidence of his front office the most? All right, let's switch over to this. Same thing, my take on your take, but Colin Cowherd said something that was pretty interesting a couple weeks ago. He said, Dak Prescott, all the winning that he's done in his career has been with perfection all around him. He's had top-tier running back, top-tier O-line, top-tier kicker, top-tier defense. And he's supposed to be paid like a Russell Wilson, who's a top-tier quarterback and has top-tier really nothing else. And he wants to get paid like Carson Wentz, who beat Dak in a must-win game when Carson Wentz had a top-tier nothing else. Well, he has a top-tier tight end, yeah. But compared to what Dak has, Carson Wentz was really on an island. So there's this stat going around that says, since entering the league in 2016, Dak Prescott has the third most regular season wins out of all quarterbacks in the NFL. And that's right. That is an accurate stat. But here's the thing about that, and it kind of relates to Dak Prescott's contract situation is, just because he has third most wins, Dak Prescott is not even close to being a top 3 quarterback in the league. Not even close. I would probably put him in the bottom of the top 10, possibly 8, 9, or 10. 8's even a stretch. But Dak Prescott is not a top 3 quarterback. Why? Because Dak Prescott has had everything given to him on a silver platter. Look at Patrick Mahomes, who I feel is better than Dak Prescott. Patrick Mahomes does not have the defense that Dak Prescott has. If Patrick Mahomes had Dak Prescott's defense, Patrick Mahomes would have never lost a game. They would have not lost to New England, and Patrick Mahomes would probably have 2 rings right now instead of 1. I'm not crazy. What about Deshaun Watson? Deshaun Watson has Bill O'Brien, who went for a fake punt on his own 30-yard line when he was up double digits in a playoff game and eventually gave away that lead that he had to the Kansas City Chiefs. If Deshaun Watson has Dak Prescott's decision-making at coach, like with the Jason Garrett, or Deshaun Watson's running game, or Deshaun Watson's defense, that doesn't happen. Look, if Russell Wilson had the team that Dak Prescott has, he would be in a much better position. He'd probably have 2 or 3 rings instead of just the 1. Dak Prescott has had perfection his entire career. And here's another thing, when people try to compare Dak Prescott to like Jared Goff or Carson Wentz, here's another thing that people always forget to mention. Carson Wentz, Patrick Mahomes, Deshaun Watson, Lamar Jackson, Jared Goff, they were all handed the reins of the franchise. Dak Prescott wasn't handed the reins of anything. They sort of just fell in his lap and he splashed onto the scene with a great running back, great online, great weapons, great defense, great kicker, relatively great coach. Dak wasn't supposed to be this rookie phenom with Zeke Elliott. Zeke Elliott was the first round pick for the Cowboys. Dak Prescott was a 4th. He was supposed to be a solid backup for the Cowboys, who maybe in 2 years or 3 years might become assistant to the offensive coordinator. So, no. I can think of, off the top of my head, 7, possibly 8 quarterbacks I would take ahead of Dak Prescott right now. Lamar Jackson, Deshaun Watson, Patrick Mahomes, Drew Brees, Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, Carson Wentz, yeah. That's it. Don't even get me started on maybe Jimmy Garoppolo, or maybe Drew Lock, or maybe if he has some sort of resurgence this year, Phillip Rivers, or maybe if he continues his production, Gardner Minshew, or maybe if he continues his production, Sam Darnold, or maybe if he continues his production, Josh Allen. And you may look at me crazy. Sam Darnold, Josh Allen. All guys who beat Dak last season. Teddy Bridgewater, Mitch Trubisky, Kirk Cousins, all beat Dak last year. Carson Wentz, Aaron Rodgers, beat Dak last year. So it's not crazy to think that Dak isn't this top-tier quarterback and therefore doesn't deserve to be paid like one. It's not crazy, because when the chips fall, Dak Prescott falls way farther. We all saw what he looked like without Zeke. A 76.6 passer rating, 7 total touchdowns, 10 turnovers, a 3-3 record. We all saw that. We all saw what happened. It wasn't lost on anybody. So Dak Prescott wanting to get paid like a top-tier quarterback is blasphemous. Now, I will never say that nobody deserves to make money. At the end of the day, if someone is willing to give you money, you deserve it 100%. I'm just saying that I personally would not get paid. I personally would not pay Dak Prescott top dollar. In fact, today, which would have been yesterday as you're hearing this, Colin said Dak Prescott is Ryan Tannehill. That's how much he deserves to get paid. Ryan Tannehill. And you know what? The more I think about it, the more I agree. Relies heavily on his defense. Relies heavily on his running game. May or may not be hampered by coaching, but probably isn't. Not a terrific athlete, but good enough to get the job done. Has a pretty good arm. There's limitations to how much he can produce before it's diminishing returns on investment. There's limitations to Dak Prescott. And I feel like this year and in the coming years, if the Cowboys give Dak Prescott this contract, the Cowboys will discover that. But they probably already have, which is why they're so hesitant on paying him top dollar. Look, I have no problem with Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott is a good quarterback, but he's not top dollar. He's not top dollar. He does not need to be the quarterback to break the market. That's going to be Patrick Mahomes, who, by the way, already has a ring. Dak Prescott hasn't even played in a conference championship game. And yet, I'm supposed to believe that he's supposed to be paid top dollar. Yeah, right. All right, now here's the final topic I want to bring up. Kyrie Irving said, "Guys, let's not play right now. This is one of the only times where we have the full attention of the world. Let's tackle these issues. Let's do what we got to do. Let's handle what we got to handle. So that way, when we come back, there's change going on as we're on the court." And people initially said, "Kyrie, you're crazy. We need the NBA. The NBA has to come back. We have to return to normalcy." But the more people sat and thought about it, I'm one of these people, the more they realized, you know what? That's not the craziest of ideas. Look, Kyrie has a point. Sports has often been used as a way to distract from what's going on around us. It's fact. When things often seem too big or too much to handle, we often turn to things of entertainment. For example, when you're with your kids and they're getting on your nerves, you tend to want some time to yourself to entertain yourself. So you send the kids off to a babysitter while you and your spouse go to have a movie night with a dinner or something. Kyrie Irving is not wrong here. Athletes have the most influential voice in America. It's not politicians, it's not actors or actresses, it's not musicians, it's athletes. Why? Because sports doesn't matter about. Sports has nothing to do with party lines. Has nothing to do with your takes on whether or not fur should be used in clothing, or whether or not you believed in GMOs, or whether or not you believe that women should be able to vote. Sports have nothing to do with that. Sports are simply about the 10 guys who are on the court, or the 22 guys who are on the field or a pitch, or the 10, sometimes 11, 12, or 13 guys who are on a baseball diamond. That's all sports matter about. Most people aren't fans of sports teams because of their political acumen or what they do behind the scenes. They're mainly fans of sport teams for 4 reasons: proximity, entertainment value, nostalgia, and dominance. February 26, 2012, Trayvon Martin was killed by George Zimmerman. What happened that day? NBA All-Star Game. KD won the MVP, scored 36 points. UFC 144 in Japan. Anthony Pettis defeats Joe Lauzon via knockout. League Cup football, which European football is probably more popular in America than our own domestic soccer league. Liverpool beats Cardiff City 2-2, 3-2 on penalties. After a super late equalizer by Ben Turner for Cardiff City, Liverpool wins in penalties. June 17th, 1994. A day so infamous it has its own documentary. The day of the OJ chase, when the police are chasing OJ in that white Bronco. What happened that day? The commencement of the 1994 World Cup that was held in the United States. Game 5 of the 1994 NBA Finals between the Rockets and the Knicks in Arnold Palmer's last U.S. Open. Distractions. What about 21 years later? June 17, 2015. Not too far from my hometown. The Charleston 9 shooting. The day before, the Warriors dynasty won its first of 3 titles, clinching the series 4-2 over Cleveland with a 105-97 win. Also the day before, Amy Wambach scored a goal late in the first half to give the U.S. women's national team a 1-0 victory over Nigeria, therefore clinching Group D. And the Cubs that day, they beat the Indians 17-0 despite only scoring in the second, third, and ninth innings. Distractions. April 4th, 2015, also not too far from my hometown. Walter Scott was shot and killed by a police officer. What happened that day, you ask? Oh, NCAA Final Four happened. Wisconsin beats then undefeated Kentucky 71-64, and Duke holds all Spartans not named Denzel Valentine, Travis Trice, and Brandon Dawson to 4-19 shooting and an 81-61 win over Michigan State. Opening day of the MLB was the next day. And also the next day, Women's College Basketball Final Four, where 1 seed Notre Dame squeaks by 1 seed South Carolina 66-65. And 1 seed UConn obliterates 1 seed Maryland 81-58. All these are distractions. Things that pull your mind away from what's happening in the world and just for a minute gives you peace and solace. What Kyrie is saying is, we have the world's full attention right now. Let's not give him a peace of mind by going back to playing sports. But there are some things to Kyrie's plan that needs to be addressed and needs to be worked on. And I, for one, believe that Kyrie knows this. I'm pretty sure Kyrie is aware that his plan is incomplete. For example, there needs to be a way to compensate players for their lost time. Some guys don't have the money that Kyrie does. Some guys don't have the shoe deals or don't have the endorsements of guys like LeBron James or KD or Kawhi Leonard. They don't have that. So you need to find a way to make sure that those guys are set financially. Next, you need to have a system implemented to continue the development of younger players. This was an issue that was brought up by the teams who were excluded from the 22-team playoffs when the idea of the return to Orlando was formalized. It was like, wait, how are we going to develop these young guys? They still can't go to the gyms. That's when the NBA decided to let guys start to go back to the gym and work and do individual workouts. Another thing Kyrie's plan needs to focus on is a system in place to increase diversity within the executive positions of the NBA. That's what this is for, right? A fight against systemic racism. So figure out a way to start that fight in your own employment. Next, you have to find a way to compensate team and facility staff. A lot of people who work at these facilities or work for these teams, oftentimes they work paycheck to paycheck. And I know these teams pledged, that people will be financially taken care of. But for how long? What about the people who are going to work at NBA Orlando? What are you going to do with them? Are you going to make sure that they still get paid as well? What about the other people? The broadcast staff, the referees, the people who would have done equipment and lighting and music and all that other stuff. You got to make sure they're compensated too. Next, and probably the most important step, that Kyrie's plan needs to include is the need to take steps to combat racism and incite change in the world. Athletes must lend their ears and voices to the problems of the people, and they have been doing so since George Floyd's murder, and I commend them for that. But now it's time to spark change. Whether it's donating to black businesses or things that help uplift the black community or helping sponsor African Americans to go to college or do whatever you so please. But you need to have a way to affect real world people dealing with real world problems. Kyrie's plan isn't really a crazy one, but there's definitely some stuff that needs to happen for it to be a great one.